Hello. Hello. I wasn't ready. Apologies for the loop in the intro music. Hi, welcome. I'm back. However, I was not in the mood for any of the games I'm currently playing through. And right now, I'm not really in a state where I can force myself to play something that I'm not really in the mood for. So, what we're doing is I'm gonna play Ace Attorney. Because the second I finished the first so I have the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, right? I've finished the first game in the pack. I haven't finished the second. So like I'd been thinking like, oh, I could play through that on stream or whatever, and then I just never did because I had other things I was playing. So I'm like, you know what I am in the mood for? I want to play Ace Attorney. So that's what we're gonna do. I just want to play a new game that I know I enjoy. I want to play something I'm in the mood for. And right now I'm in the mood for Ace Attorney. Eventually we'll go around and like mop up all of the games that I haven't finished yet, that I still want to finish at least. But until that... Bruh, I already dropped some frames? What? So I updated OBS. It doesn't have the box with like, oh, green is good, and then it goes like yellow or orange or red if you start dropping frames. Now it's just got bars. That's not as blatantly obvious. Oh, also, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but so for those who don't know, my brother used to live in the same apartment as me. He has since moved out. But because he was the one who set everything up in the first place, a lot of stuff was under his name, including our internet. Now, I was still, like, since he moved out, I was paying for the whole thing, but, like, it was still under his name. So he contacted me recently saying, like, hey, it's still under my name. I was thinking maybe you could, like, set up your own internet, and then I'd cancel mine after yours was set up, because it's too much of a pain to transfer it over to your name. So earlier this week I did that. I set up, like, I placed my order for my own internet plan. Like, very proud of myself for getting through all that. And so I told him, yeah, it should be like sometime next week that mine will get hooked up. He's like, okay, cool, I'll cancel mine after yours is all set up. Turns out that's not how it works. Because they're both at the same address, they have to disconnect his before they can connect mine. And so I don't know how much of a gap there's going to be between his getting disconnected and mine getting connected, which is going to be real awkward. Hopefully it doesn't happen during a stream, but yeah. Part of me wonders just how much of a pain it was to transfer it to my name, considering how much of a pain it's going to be for me to be without internet. Anyway, game. Let me maximize this. I can probably just maximize the full thing instead of just the... Now my Joy-Cons are being a bit weird at the moment. See that? Hey, so word of advice. When an update comes out for OBS, don't take it immediately. Because I did that this morning. And That's probably why my OBS just fucking crashed. So I guess maybe I won't full screen my projection and we'll see how long we last. Also, am I back? My thing's still showing. Bruh? Hold on. I think it's just being weird on my phone, but... Let me move around. Okay, yep. It's working. Okay, so hopefully... Okay, hold on. Let me... This Joy-Con may be on its way out. Get rid of this one. Hello? Is this... There it is. Oh. Oh, now this is working. There we go. There we go. This stream is incredibly scuffed, but oh well. Select adventure. Because I've already done the first one on my own time. Was this... Did I play it before I started streaming? I don't remember. However, I have not played the second game. Also, I'm probably not going to do voices for all the characters because I still want my throat to recover a little. I don't know if it's fully back in shape yet.
Standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean.
Alright, I forgot they're British.
Seem like a dream. But I do miss my time in England's vast capital. You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court. Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home.
I find myself faced with another awful crime. Oh no.
So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer.
Oh
so
shit!
Please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
What the fuck do you mean Gisele's dead? What? She was like... She was the... Okay. So the victim this time is like the culprit of the first case of the first game. And we never really got closure with her because like she's like, yep, I'm getting shipped back off to Britain or whatever. Your legal systems can't touch me. And then she's gonna get away with everything. But now she's like, I figured she was gonna be she was gonna be tied to like the big bad of the big conspiracy that's going on or whatever. But now she's fucking dead? What? Here I am again after 9 months. The Supreme Court of Judicature in Japan. I feel so nervous, but I must steel my nerves and find a way to compose myself. Ah, good, you're here. It doesn't do for a lawyer to be late. Oh yes, good morning, sir. I hardly recognize you. You got a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet. Those wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. I wonder if, like, them having Susato take the lead of the first case is, like, it's just their way of, like, justifying giving the tutorial again. They always find a way to justify, like, oh, this is, like, the 6th game in the series, but we still have to give the tutorial in case it's someone's first. Even though this one's like a much more direct follow-up to the previous one. Oh dear. The truth is, I'm so incredibly nervous I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I'd never been born. Goodness, not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say. Yujin Mikotoba, professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University. A man who early in his life travelled to Great Britain to study the latest advances in forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me, who's this? Is this our defendant? Potentially? Would I be correct in thinking that you're to be my lawyer in court today? Oh, yes. Yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. I swear on my life. It's a complete fabrication, the whole thing. Ray Membami, born the same year as I and my greatest friend. Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the university research laboratory helping my father. And sadly, she's the defendant in today's trial. Accused of committing a truly awful murder, so that's why Susato is getting involved. Okay. Maybe turn it down a little. Are you feeling alright? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh my, it's just that you look so gallant and dashing. Sorry? When I fall under your intense gaze, well, it makes me feel rather bashful. Okay. Goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am. Wahahaha. It would seem my little plan for this trial is going to work. Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikotoba? If even your best friend can't see through the disguise, I think we can relax. Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father? Wow. Is that you, Susato? I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner, right? It's just that, no, what are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cap, that varsity cape, that varsity badge. Look at you. You look for all the world just like a student of the Imperial Yume University, a male student. I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. Oh man. She's just like me, for real. Not really. I may wake at 4 sometimes, but I don't get up at that time. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see, it was the only way. the only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take your defense in this trial. My defense? Never before in my life have I felt so frustrated at having been born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We're not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom. Man! It's a different time. Despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike, but women are forbidden. Just for today, I'll be leaving my true self at the courtroom door, so that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you'd go to such lengths for me? Of course, you're my greatest friend. I just worry that I shan't be the lawyer you deserve. Oh no, I have complete faith in you. Ray. So strange though. I mean, you're such an accomplished judicial assistant already. And yet just because you're a woman... What a wretched reason. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed in court? You're so gallant and dashing. Ray? Please don't look at me like that with those... with those flushed cheeks and doting eyes. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm peeking the mic a bit. Maybe I should sit further back. You really do look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice. Wahahaha. Should be pleased, it means you look convincing as a man. I am pleased, I think. It certainly helped to bolster my confidence today. Ray, you're managing to put on a brave face in all this, but I can see through it. I've noticed how your shoulders are slumped, and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Okay. Okay, you're like... assuming Susato and... What's his name again? Ryunosuke. Assuming Susato and Ryunosuke end up getting together, you're Phoenix's ancestor, okay? You're not Apollo's. Apollo's the one that can spot nervous ticks. Susato, you do believe me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder? Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly clean. Isn't that right? Yes. Yes, it is. Perfectly clean. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence, which is why I'll stand by you to the bitter end in this trial. Whatever happens, I'll always be on your side. Because that's what it means to be a defense lawyer. That means so much to me, Susato. Defendant, counsel, court is about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once. Okie dokie. Should go in at once, Ray. If you're late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty. Jesus. Stand aside! I don't think I've ever seen her run so fast. Well, Susato, you've certainly surprised your father. Going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom, and with no prior experience of being a lawyer. There was simply no other way. That's all there is to it. But father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I'm right in assuming that Ray doesn't know how it came to this. Oh. I'm guessing how it came to this is like no other lawyer would take her case. Yes, quite right, I've kept that information from her. It would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take her case. I didn't want to burden her with that. And is it true? The reason why every other lawyer is refusing to take the case? Is it really because of who the victim was? Miss Brett. Giselle Brett. We should be making a move now, too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I'll do what I can to support my student. Thank you, Father. I am Susato Mikotoba, a judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied a student of law on a study trip to Great Britain. But 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that he were here, I wonder. Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruhodo-san. August, 9 AM. That's about the start of stream time. Supreme Court of Judicature, courtroom number 1. Oh hey, it's Ouchie again. This court is now in session to hear the trial of Rei Membami. I will say, compared to the main Ace Attorney series, I dislike the naming of characters in the Great Ace Attorney. Because, like, half the time, it's not even a pun, it's just a Sherlock Holmes reference. And then half of the remaining times, the characters' names are in Japanese, so you can't even tell what the pun is in English. The prosecution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency. Yes, very convincing. Defense counsel, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency, we are ready. Ready. Yes, counsel. According to your registration details, your name is, Ryutaru Naruhodo. Is that correct? She just heckin' stole his name. Sorry? Oh yes, I had come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture. So I'm afraid to say I simply put down the first name that sprung to mind. Well, counsel? Yes, that's right. That's me. I mean... Yes, I am Ryutaro, he who has vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruhodo clan. Ah. Seems Ryutaro may need to consider how to better uphold his manly act first and not overdo it. And with those wild eyes, you aren't doing any favors either, just relax and listen. Naruhodo? A fresh face in this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. But the name Naruhodo, would that perchance be? You may be thinking of Ryunosuke Naruhodo, currently in Britain as part of a study program. This is, his cousin. That's right, Ryutaro here has been studying in the provinces, but was called to the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matters of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers. Any of them. Tut tut, what a pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has to call in a country boy. How dare you! God damn it, right? Susato is every bit as gallant dashing as any of your Tokyo attorneys. I won't have you making fun of her. Her? Oh, please be careful, right? Shh. How is that supposed to be pronounced? Haha. Okay, what an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not. I'm so nervous. Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand why what Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wont to flit. I have finished my tea. The case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interests. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire. Just like the trial 9 months ago, because a British person was murdered on Japanese soil. Yet for proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown yokel by the dock? Dear me. Perhaps this would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense, to determine whether you are sufficiently competent to practice in this courtroom. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruhodo stood where you're standing now, this same judge tested him as well. And even though he was just a student at the time, not even of law, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, counsel, do you consent to answering some simple questions? Alright, it's time to prove myself. The same little animation. Yes, Your Excellency, but please do make them simple. Very well, to start with, you will state the name of the victim. Phew, that is simple. I couldn't forget that if I tried. And then her mind might go, what's the matter? Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, minds are one to blank. It's not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position, and in that guise. Even a bright spark like you is bound to flicker and falter under the circumstances. Oh dear, this is a dismal failure. Don't fret, you need only use the knowledge you've gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem. Of course, the court record. Yes, the answer will be amongst all the key information about the case in the court record. That's right, just use R to open up the court record. Then you need to flip to the people section with R. Don't take too long over it, His Excellency is watching you closely. Alright, check the court record with R. That's where the information I need will be. Post-mortem report. Time of death, just after 2 p.m. Death is believed to be due to trauma of the victim's lung with a knife blade. Only a single wound was identified. And it is, in fact, Giselle Brett, the victim of the case, who was a former British exchange student. 9 months ago, she was found guilty of the murder of visiting professor Dr. John Watson. I'm waiting, counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case? It is Giselle Brett. Yes! Same animation. The name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Brett. I'm pretty sure that one's another one that's like not really a pun and it's just a Sherlock Holmes reference. Giselle Brett. A name that will never be forgotten in the courtrooms of our country, I'm sure. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you will be aware of the significance of that name. So let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was a visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why then is her name indelibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten that case from 9 months ago. But if it's proving hard to recall the finer points, everything you need is in the court record. Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Brett, behind the woman's student persona, was the face of Queen Victoria. A killer. 9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University was killed, and the culprit was Giselle Brett. Recap of the first game. Yeah, she was a killer. At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain. and it was in the midst of this delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead. Alright, I forgot they changed Watson to Wilson in order to get away with, like, not angering the estate of Arthur Conan Doyle. I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikatoba? Yes, I was indeed indebted to the man. He'd been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who invited him here to Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly. Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here at the Supreme Court. A student of the Imperial Yume University was arrested on suspicion of murder. A second-year English language student by the name of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Bratt. We never learned the motive for it. Miss Giselle Bratt eventually admitted to her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take Dr. Wilson's life, she gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion. Immediately after the trial, the British government brought its consular jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Brett according to our empire's laws. It was decided that she would be removed to Shanghai, China instead. Why Shanghai? There's a British consular court there. Correct, I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. Jeez. Okay. So I guess that explains why after 9 months she's still here in Japan. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board a steamship. Sorry, I had to sneeze. And yet, the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed. Only the day before? That will do. I'm satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant. Oh. Thank you, Your Excellency. Over the first hurdle. Now, a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Ouchie? I don't know what that animation is really supposed to be. Like, I get that he's, like, putting his hands on the desk, but, like, why does he... Or rather, why does he... Oh, I don't have... Hold on. Why does he... As is your wish, Your Excellency. A repugnant crime took place on the 11th of August in broad daylight. Where did the sound go? Is this scene supposed to be silent? Hold on. Okay, no. The sound just died. Hold on. What the hell? Okay, hold on. Bruh. What the hell is going on? Unplug. Plug it back in. Bruh. Okay. It's still not making any sound. Great. Hold on, let me just see if there is supposed to be sound here. Yeah, there is definitely supposed to be sound. Okay, is it this one that's being a problem? Where is the sound? Bruh. Okay, maybe it's the port on the computer. Okay, I'm gonna restart OBS and see if that fixes it. I don't know if I accidentally did it myself somehow by clicking somewhere, or whether like unplugging it and then plugging back in just automatically shifted something in OBS. But as it turns out, the slider was just all the way down. So that's why it wasn't working. That's why I couldn't hear anything. Because the volume slider was down. I'm heckin' stupid. Oh, not that. On the outskirts of the imperial capital, under a bright blue sky, at a secluded bathing spot by the sea, the incident occurred inside a small beach hut erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung. And by the looks of it, she was stabbed in the back, which probably rules out suicide. An injury which proved fatal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death. Miss Brett, in her bathing attire, and the accused, Ray Membami. Thank you, Stream Elements. Accordingly, there can be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially when we consider that she had a powerful motive. The police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady. Well, that extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat lost for words, I must say. That's certainly true. The prosecution's summary was full of words that raise an awful lot of questions. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about the motive. I'm guessing it's the motive. You're clearly exaggerating. Powerful motive is a blatant overstatement. Is the yokel boy using long words he doesn't fully understand? I beg your pardon. No matter, let us put this to the accused, shall we? Membami-san, you are a research assistant at the Imperial Yume University, I believe. Yes, I am. I'm working with Professor Mikotoba in his laboratory at the moment. I can confirm that. The defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility. Fascinating to hear. Now another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikotoba, whose research were you assisting then? Oh, I was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson. Oh, that's the motive they're going for. Dr. Wilson, the visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Brett 9 months ago? The accused had a deep-seated respect for her former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true? Yes, Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man. Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the English woman who killed him. This is leading the witness, Your Honor. This is leading the witness. I don't know shit about law. Well, obviously, I was filled with hatred for what she'd done. A powerful hatred. Oh no, Ray, be careful what you're saying. Ah. The motive was revenge. Plain and simple, Your Excellency. Well, it was clearly a trap all along. How wicked of him to use Ray's undying respect for her former mentor against her like that. I must find out more details and something we can use to bolster our defense. As a lawyer, okay. I get the feeling that, like, we're probably going to have to go through all of these. Membami-san. Yes, what is it? Naruhodo-san. I'm really starting to wish we made my alias Ryutaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you were present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, well, no, that's not true. It wasn't like that at all. There were other people present, and a detective who was guarding Miss Brett for starters. I was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all. But let us be clear, at the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut. You and no one else. The truth is, there is only one reason why this young woman accompanied Miss Brett on her bathing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life. No! Because, as we know, the following day would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. And the accused would never have the opportunity to dispatch her again. Kindly refrain from conjecture, counsel. Ch-ha-ha. The prosecution counsel seems to enjoy using provocative tricks like that. But for now, at least, we need to assemble more facts. Try not to let him go with you. Oh dear. This is really terrifying, but Father's right, we need more information. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution. Okay, yeah, the bathing spot. If I may, Prosecutor Ouchie. What do you want, you fresh-faced young yokel student? I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned a bathing spot? Huh, my apologies, clearly my modernity has confused the poor country bumpkin's simple mind. I don't like this guy. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is curative, therapeutic, and excellent for the skin's... No, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had, to all intents and purposes, been found guilty of murder. Why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea? That's a good point. For old time's sake, I believe. Sorry. Miss Brett was to depart for Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government to comply. Well, that's not suspicious at all. But on what grounds would we agree to such a request? Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. Open the country. Stop having it be closed. In matters of diplomacy, it would seem we don't have the courage to decline the whims of a known criminal. Don't look at me, Professor. It was the government who granted permission, not I. In any case, it was decided that a dedicated detective on duty... that with a dedicated detective on duty, nothing could go wrong. Why do I get the feeling this is the guy who, like... I forget his name. His surname means, like, tall and thin or something. And that's, like, the pun in his name. But it's in Japanese, so no English speaker would be able to tell what the pun is. But in fact, a murder took place. I said don't look at me, it was the young student girl that did it, not I. No one has proved that yet. I wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to. I believe we have a clear picture of the incident now. Despite her guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid incarceration, instead continuing her research at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Ray would have encountered each other on a number of occasions. Seeing the murderer of the mentor for whom she had such great respect, enjoying such undeserved liberty. Yes, even if it was only temporary until Miss Brett's extradition to Shanghai, you can hardly blame Ray for her feelings of anger and resentment. Poor Ray. So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind as to peruse this exhibit. A photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the grim incident. Oof. Yes, thank you, Counsel. A tragic image. As you can clearly see, there is nowhere within the hut that anyone else could have hidden. No, but there is a very obvious slit in the back of the hut that someone could have shoved a knife through. One that lines up exactly with the seat and if someone were to sit there, it would hit them in the back. This is the first case, it's not supposed to be difficult. The court will accept this photographic print as evidence. As I understand it then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant. Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case. We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime and damning evidence. Witnesses? But who? One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. I assure you, the testimony of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt. Bam. Very well then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses. I, Takatsuchi Aochi, have been waiting for this moment. Sorry? Yes, I haven't forgotten that trial 9 months ago here in this very courthouse, when that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Oh yeah, he has a different hairstyle now, I didn't even realize. You Ryunosuke Naruhodo! What, yes? This is an insult to the Aochi family's name. Oh, this insult to the Aochi family name will never be forgotten. You've become conceited with age, Counsel. But the old have to stand aside and make way for the new. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that. Strike the head of the samurai whose top knot has been cut, and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died. The start of your own mini Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Counsel? Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there has been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the Aochi growth. You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown? I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. I'm afraid I can't really see. Where is the hope exactly? I said silence. Today I face another yokel student of the Naruhodo clan. I will vanquish you, and my victory will be the fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand. Looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. The prosecution and the defense each has much to lose. A haircut is hardly comparable to Ray's life. Yep, there he is again. What the fuck is Soseki doing here? Okay, so like, the detective I expected. Soseki Natsume I did not. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. Yo, he's got a turtle on his head. That's cute. Imperial Police Bureau. I'm in disguise, obviously, so I can go undetected. And I am, well, the next big thing in books. An author renowned throughout the capital, in fact, yes. Soon to be sold out. The satirical I Am a Cat. Sensational Success by Soseki Natsume. Who the fuck is that reporter? Oh my goodness. Struggling student from the provinces. Please, you don't need to be in awe of me. I needn't? It's only natural that you would feel nervous in my presence. But all of you, please relax. Call me Soseki, even. Yes. What on earth is Soseki-san doing here? Tread carefully, Susato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun. Yes, of course, I know. I presume Soseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget about him. Although he does seem to have changed somewhat in these 6 months or so since I last saw him. And as for Inspector Hosonaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe. Do I have something on my face? Well, your glasses for one, although they don't seem to be helping you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either. Ah, I suppose it's this disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Well, I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. But what business did a writer such as yourself have it... What the hell was that? Something from upstairs, I think. What business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Soseki-san? Ah, well, you see. I have been asked that day to give a lecture. On the morning of the incident, in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the Medical Science Department. The professor over there, in fact. With Professor Mikatoba? Hey, Theo! Thank you for the raid. Hold on one sec. You missed all the stuff at the start. Is that how the command went again? Yes. Thank you for the raid. Hope you had fun with, hold on. You missed the scuff. Don't worry, it's good. It's good. Hope you had fun playing Portal 2 with Yuri. How did things go? Did the divorce happen? or did you make it out? I got yelled at. Expected. Also, thank you for the redeems, Miko. Yeah. But divorce averted, let's go. So yes, welcome raiders. My name is Melody Sea Turtle. I'm a VTuber from Australia. I play popular Nintendo games and obscure shit that no one's heard of. Today I'm doing neither of those things. I'm playing Ace Attorney. But Ace Attorney used to be a Nintendo exclusive series, so I guess it counts. I'm playing the second Great Ace Attorney game. I played the first one off stream. So yeah. Also, I'm not doing voices today. I want to preserve my own voice a little. Yes, that's right. It was arranged by one of the newspapers. So to give a didn't realize they made a second one. They're like... They were originally two separate games on the DS, 3DS rather, and then they got ported and localized as a single bundle. So I played the first one, I didn't play the second one in the bundle. So to give a brief summary of the case so far, the culprit of the first case from the first game got killed right before she was about to be extradited from Japan. And the judicial assistant from the first game is currently masquerading as a man in order to act as a lawyer because the suspect, the defendant, is her best friend. Also, she has to masquerade as a man because in Japan, in this time period, apparently women just aren't allowed in the courtroom unless they're like a witness or the defendant. So, you know. Anyway, I've already locked onto something that they probably don't want you to notice until much later. So this woman was stabbed in the back, right? What do you think this is? Where do you think she was sitting when she got stabbed? How do you think the stab happened? It's the first case. It's not supposed to be difficult. They wanted some story or other about two former students who'd studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renowned author, the press never leave me alone. The Secret Spy, snapshot, scribble stories, and scupper. Oh, they secretly spy, snapshot, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provincial struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. He practically threw that paper at me. The Soseki Natsume article has entered the court record. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, hold on, I want to read that. It could be relevant. Newspaper containing an article about a discussion between my father and Soseki-san. The debate became quite spirited. A hoe? Now why is there a crack here? Could it be that the camera has been damaged? Perhaps in a scuffle? I'm preempting the game. This will not happen as we get to the later cases, don't worry. They just make it obvious that things are suspicious in the first case. At least at the start of the first case. When it gets later, sometimes it's more difficult. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, the lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words. As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory under strict surveillance, of course. At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance, and the response was permit Miss Brett to go as long as a detective accompanies her. That detective, I am at liberty to divulge, was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosonaga. Thereby, the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems. It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so, he says while coughing. Man, Like, at least I can do my job from home. This dude's worse than me. Oh god, it's coughing up blood. I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly. Oh my, Inspector, you... This was a recurring character trait in the first game as well. Oh, well, you do have something on your face now. How unsightly. I do apologize. Does that mean you went to the beach too, Father? No, fortunately I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that as my assistant, Ray was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation. But if only I had, I'd never seen that awful sight. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret. Who the fuck is this reporter? Very well, I must now ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. You will give an account of all that you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Man, you need a fucking doctor. How is it that after 9 months, you're still coughing up blood? Have you not gotten yourself checked out by a doctor? Are you okay, sir? Of course, Your Excellency. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret, I am. Witness testimony. So for those who have seen other Ace Attorney games but perhaps haven't seen this one, in this game, multiple witnesses testify at once. This was a gimmick first introduced in the Ace Attorney and Layton crossover game, but later got added to the Great Ace Attorney games. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I just managed to catch that crab when I suddenly heard a caterwaul from behind me. I ran into the beach hut at once, where I found the pair in question. Yes, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand as she stabbed wildly. He did not witness that. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim Okay, that is very clearly a contradiction. I'm not even going to press anything. I know what the contradiction is here. Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses were here, present, saw it. Oh, was it present here or here present? The very moment of this heinous crime. Reading is difficult. What? Now, if you will recall, I promised evidence as well. What phrase did I use again? Yes, that was it. Damning evidence. What have you there, counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene whilst examining the body. It appears that in her dying moments, with her final ounce of strength, the victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify her killer. What? Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more... goodness me. She's holding the pen. The victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately there in her hand. That's right, the fountain pen. If you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency. The owner's initials have been engraved onto the ebonite barrel. R.M. Ray Membami. The initials of the defendant. No! I like that with like 3D they've started interacting with the back wall more. Because they have done it previously, but like before them jumped to 3D, it was mainly in Apollo Justice. Because rather than slamming on rather than like banging on his desk, I didn't mean to press it again. Clavier would, like, slam his fist onto the back wall. But then, like, before that, the only time they ever interacted with the back wall was when Von Karma was pronounced guilty and he started banging his head against it. This fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence. That really doesn't prove anything besides the fact that she was at the scene. And, like, we already knew she was at the scene. So have I admitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouse today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. No? I don't understand. The prosecutor Ouchie of 9 months ago had none of this man's poise. Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Get up off the table. Naruhodo-san. Naruhodo. That means... Oh, yes, me. Is there another Naruhodo in my courtroom? Actually, there isn't even a single Naruhodo in your courtroom. Cousin Ryotaro, pull yourself together, please. Alright. I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies with the witnesses' testimonies to prove that they're lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do. Well, I already know what I'm gonna do. The witnessed scene. Managed to catch the crab. I mean, I said I wouldn't press, but I want to know what the hell he's talking about with this crab. You're describing the victim's scream, presumably, Sasaki-san? In more literary terms, you might say it was a scream that could have pierced the heavens. Kya! Or the like. Of course, that's just a metaphor. We renowned authors are wont to describing things so. Sasaki-san wasn't at all like this in England. Anyway, I spun around the noise and the beach hut immediately... At the noise, and the beach hut immediately fell under my gaze. Yes, the beach hut. The area is popular with government ministers. Many have seaside retreats there for rest and recuperation. Locals are prohibited from entering the area, so it's always very quiet. The beach hut is a simple structure erected as a place for people to change or take refuge from the sun. Oh, there's the crab! I saw the crab. Although the Englishwoman commandeered the hut for herself, that's not suspicious at all. Which meant that I was forced to change into my swimwear on the sand. I imagine that was rather embarrassing for you. Well, anyway, I tossed the crab aside and headed for the beach. Or, in more literary terms, I got an achievement? I decrabbed and beetled off hut-wise. I wanted to hear more about the crab, but I guess we're not getting that. Okay, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman, dagger in hand. She stabbed wildly. Here it is. I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times, except only a single wound was identified. It's the first case. It's not supposed to be difficult. Oh. Victim Giselle Brett, female, British, time of death. Around 2 p.m. on 11th of August, ascertained by examination and witness statements. Cause of death, single deep stab wound from behind piercing a lung, resulting in a fatal hemorrhage. Death would have occurred within minutes. Notes extreme meiosis pupil constriction was observed in the victim in both eyes. Okay. That's gonna be relevant later. However, objection! Right now we only care about the fact that there is an inconsistency here. With that accusatory cry that just welled up deep from inside me, I think I finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. What's the meaning of that menacing pose, Counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? How? No, not you, Sasaki-san. The query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga. At me? In your statement just now, you said that the victim was stabbed multiple times. Yes, that's right. As I said when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand, like a murderous demon. And yet, that cannot be. What? Get to the point, please, Counsel. In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only. Ah. In other words, Inspector Hosanaga's testimony is clearly flawed. Ah. And Soseki-san. Me? You claim to have seen Membami-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes, I did. Wildly. But both you and the inspector confirm the same point, that there was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding. Yes, and? It's quite simple. We know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once. Therefore, there is no way there could have been blood on the knife if that single stabbing hadn't already occurred. Ah, true. Then what exactly is your contention, Counsel? Are you ever going to tell us? Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Soseki-san in fact saw was not the moment the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant in fact withdrew the blade from the victim's body. That can't be. Excellent work, Sasato. You exploded at them without objection and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically. Tishaha. I still don't know how that laugh is supposed to be read. Well, well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin's stages seem much like this in that trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection attempting to steal the show. You're right, there were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair. Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing and withdrawing and multiple wounds, it makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. And it was at that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike, that the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. Ah! All you've successfully shown with your little display is that the moustached author is prone to moments of extravagance. Ah! I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion. But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back to where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young yokel boy. If the student girl is as innocent as you claim, then why would she have pulled the blade from the victim? And with a demon's cold-blooded composure, too. The prosecution demands an explanation, and it better be good. Why did Ray pull out the knife? Ah, yes. Going for the jugular. What does Father mean by that? Let the court hear your answer then, Counsel. The truth is, I don't really know. But I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so that she could... So, like, they're going with the narrative. There's, like, pull it out, stab her again. Hide the knife would make sense if she's guilty. I want to say, like, she's a student of, like, medicine, isn't she? So, like, you'd think she's pulling the knife out to try and treat the wound or something. According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant. That's correct. It's thought she would have remained conscious for a short while after sustaining the injury. Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer. No, it just means she was at the scene. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Membami-san was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Am I wrong? Tish, haha. Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem this is the best we can expect of this young yokel. Indeed. Ugh. Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here? Your Excellency, if I may. Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. Okay, so that was the right option. It just wasn't. It just wasn't fantastic. In respect to the slipshod assertion just put forth by the yokel defense counsel, I mean. Slipshod? Tishaha. An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not one iota of common sense. They're probably going to bring up the fact that if you remove the knife, then it just accelerates the bleeding. I know that from other Ace Attorney games. Very well, Inspector, I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel's assertion. Yes, sir, I will do so flawlessly. Witness testimony. Forensic medicine primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. There we go. That's basic knowledge of any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense. Oh, that's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. Reading is difficult. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Okay, this is probably where it's like, okay, I can't see any contradictions, so I have to start pressing or whatever. Is what you just said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily? Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed. Oh, I see. Huh, this is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. Are you saying you've poked someone with a knife? Arrest this man! Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see, or pulled a blade out of a wound, so... Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit. Father, is it true what they're telling me? Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways. But then, why would Ray have done it? Could she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would have been fatal for Miss Brett? I don't know. Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have Susato? Yes? Pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here. Ah. Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination. Oh, yes, Your Excellency. However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my adjudication immediately afterwards. I understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. Okay, so I didn't see any obvious contradictions, so I'm gonna start pressing. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. But what if you were thinking? Does that mean that if you used due care and attention, it would be alright? I wouldn't have thought this needed spelling out, really, but... The blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it. Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation. You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath. Yeah. Back to the witness testimony, please. Basic knowledge that any medical research assistant should know. In that case, there's an obvious explanation here. Which is... Clearly, the defendant... Clearly, the defendant, Raymond Mami-san, does not possess an ounce of sense. Okay. What do you think about that, Professor Mikitoba? I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense. Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer. I don't know, young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it. Careful, Counsel. Lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing. Oh dear, that recoiled on me rather badly. That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn. Hopefully you can see now that this is really basic medical knowledge. Being involved in medical research, Membami-san would certainly have been aware of it. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. The defendant had suddenly encountered someone she knew lying on the ground bleeding to death. That sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is a medical research assistant. I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such bigoted views. Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much. Well, have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Let's not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. Whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membabi-san's nature to do something so awful. This is a pointless argument. But she had both motive and opportunity. It's very hard to argue against. But you don't know the defendant. And you, Counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. Well, in future games. With this fledgling to defend her, I would almost say I pity the accused. So do I. Inspector, you'll reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please. Ah yes, Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Membami-san. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him. Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual. Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami-san's abilities. Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in his testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it. Susato? It's at times like this when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals. The fundamentals? Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it? Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already. I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. You can and must examine it with greater detail, too. Ah. Oh! I didn't examine the pen. I realize this is your first time playing the role of lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help. Examine the evidence at the court record. It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? I know what to do. Come to think of it, Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with A. Ah, by the look on your eyes, I see it's coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue. Yes, I'll do it straight away. Okay. So I'm opening this. I'm not going to present it yet. Okay, let's have a look. So there's RM. The RM initials are very clearly engraved here. And the fact that Miss Brett was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is a very clear message too. To identify her killer, you mean. I don't think there can be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case. Maybe there's someone else with RM initials. If we take off the pen's lid... Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we? This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from a bottle up through the nib. Is something wrong, Father? Just that there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in here, that's all. Oh yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. Okay, so that's... some sort of emblem here, look. But... it isn't a Yume University one. Must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. Oh ho! But then what do I present this on? Like... okay, so I have the evidence now, but what statement do I present it on? It's basic knowledge. What statement do I present it on, though? Maybe here? It's like maybe the person at the scene was not actually a medical research assistant. I don't know. Like, I have the evidence. Like, it wasn't Ray's pen. But it doesn't seem to contradict any of his statements.
Objection!
What about the witness's last statement here? Well, question is, counsel, what about those wide eyes of yours? Well, alright. I just needed to try to remain calm and examine the evidence again. I have the evidence now, I just... Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. It's basic knowledge that any medical research system with an ounce of sense. Maybe this one? There's no good reason.
Objection!
I don't know, but I have the evidence now, but I don't know where to present it. The evidence you've thrust in my direction is supposed to prove your point? I apologize, I did present it rather more forcefully than I'd intended it to. Be they verbal or material. He really put me in my place there. Like, it doesn't seem to contradict anything. Let's just present it everywhere.
Objection!
Nope. Witness's statement is contradicted. Perhaps you would care to explain to the court precisely how? Immediately. Fucking immediately, this case is kicking my ass. I don't understand. Hold on, let me go through and then... It's hopeless, I can't find a single crack in testimony. Yeah? Can't explain why she did it. Remember the fundamentals. I have, though. Is there more? Okay, let's try. Maybe there's something I missed. Take off the pen's lid. Unscrew the barrel. That lets us see in there. There's nothing here. We've already seen that. We've already seen that. So I don't think there's anything else here. I don't understand. What are you trying to get me to do, game? Like, the testimony wasn't about the pen. Oh. The other evidence. The pen's probably relevant later. This is the newspaper from Soseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume University. Of course. From Yume's medical research. Father, isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen? It's this morning's paper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard any such thing. Where on earth could that reporter have gleaned this information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there? It's a highly toxic poison we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I'd put Ray in charge of the project. Ray, she was managing it? If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, the details were leaked somehow. I don't believe it. We need to read this article very carefully. Okay, now we have this. Following a lecture at Yume by Soseki Natsume on the 11th of August, it's come to light that a very disturbing incident took place. A deadly poison being secretly developed by the university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect the newly developed chemical. The university would have to be consulted. The onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. Miss Brett has been poisoned. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids and rumored to have been commissioned by the military. Okay. Well, it is still good that we examine the pen, because I have a feeling the pen is how the poison was delivered. Basic knowledge, no reason why they would have tried to pull the knife. Well, what if she were poisoned?
Objection!
No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What? Ha, the yokel not only has poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified? It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial Yume unit. The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance to this case. But, Prosecutor Ouchie, you will let the defense speak. But a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on such kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry. Counsel for the defense, I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion. Your Excellency. Yes, of course. Thank you. Ray would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article, where it says... what was it called? Why is the poison being developed? Because that's the part that matches her symptoms. Oh, wait. Or maybe... in the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade. So I think deadly in tiny quantities, actually. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison, it's rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting if the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible? Yes, the truth is... it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. What?
Objection!
This is complete and utter nonsense. Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was hemorrhage. The word poison does not appear anywhere in the document. Well, that's because acting quickly to no, that's not what it is. The defendant prevented the poison from taking hold. No. Oh please, this is clearly desperation. The weasel's the last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with our case. I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway. In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense. Exactly, well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, yokel? Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? Because of the contraction of the eyes. If you want grounds, I'll give you grounds. What? You can't possibly... From your expression, counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency, I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In that case, counsel, you will present the proof to the court now. What evidence demonstrates a clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper article? It's on here. Extreme pupil constriction was observed in both the victim's eyes.
Take that!
I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim. Ah. Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death? Well, under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes? What are you doing, you yokel detective? In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely, notably, we've never actually seen Miss Brett's eyes because she wears a mask. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Grr. Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree, this is very compelling evidence. You yokel student and yokel professor. Reconnection successful. But I'm still dropping frames. Do. Come on. Why even bother successfully reconnecting if I'm still gonna drop this connection successful? But I'm still very much dropping frames. Bruh. I'm pretty sure my router's still in blue, which is like backup. Like trying to go through 4G instead of NBN. Let me see again. Yeah, my router's still in blue. Hold on.